Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. Unfortunately for myself, I am still feeling under the weather, so this video is going to be one where I just have my channel logo up on the screen, and I'll be talking to you about the good and the bad of the upcoming Arena Changes. So feel free to just kind of put it on in the background. I know you're disappointed you don't get to see my beautiful face, but you know, deal with your disappointments. Get ready to deal with some disappointments because we got something to talk about today, along with some good news. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the new Arena announcements. We're going to break it all down, talk about the changes that are going on with the Theros Drafts and all that stuff. But let's start with something that admittedly isn't the most exciting part of what we're going to talk about. Wizards is trying to promote the Magic World Championships with Arena, and they've actually just made some changes instead of having a client where, I don't know if you guys know how this works, but a lot of like big esports games will have particular software that they will use for tournament events. Well, Wizards of the Coast doesn't have anything like that. So basically what they're doing instead is they're just adding in a feature to support the draft portion of the event. They're adding the option for players to direct challenge each other in a limited tournament match that will follow the same rules as other best of 3 draft formats in Magic Arena. Players also have the option to choose a 40 card deck as one of those options for other direct challenge matches, where you can play around with options like timers and who goes first. So essentially, this should be incorporated for everyone to use. So if you've ever wanted to play with more restrictions and play in a limited style, like, okay, we've only got 45 minutes to finish this round or whatever, you'll have the ability to factor that into direct challenges as well. That's not something I imagine most casual players are going to care about. However, there are some people or groups that run arena tournaments, and this will help them to do their direct challenges with more rules if they choose to use so. So that's not the biggest deal about what we're going to talk about. That's one of the minor notes. One of the bigger notes is an update that's going to be coming later this year. They're actively working on the ability for us to draft against other human players completely in game. Now I don't know how long that's going to take. It takes a while sometimes when they add in these new features, and they'll say, oh, we've got to push it back, and then all of a sudden, bam, it'll be here. But I don't know. I mean, when it comes to any kind of feature they're trying to add in, I always assume it's going to take longer rather than less time, just because there's always things popping up when you're programming that you won't anticipate, and Arena has a lot of moving parts. And on top of that, I don't think that Wizards shells out the dollars for the absolute top-notch style programmers. So you've got a situation where who knows when we're going to be seeing it specifically, but the idea that we're going to have 8 people drafts where you actually get to play against somebody else, not play against somebody else, obviously you get to play against somebody else. I mean, you get to draft against other people. The bot drafting is a little bit wonky. For those of you who don't know, Arena uses a bot drafting system, which has advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are it's extremely convenient. You can do it at any time because you don't need 8 people there. If you're in the middle of drafting your packs, you can actually wander away, come back to your computer. Like, you are completely in the driver's seat in terms of your own time and usage. But on the downside, the bots don't draft the same way that people do. So it doesn't mimic a regular draft. You don't get the same level of consideration and people reading signals and also trying to stop particular strategies. Essentially, bot draft decks tend to be much, much stronger than regular draft decks because you get handed stuff that you would never get handed in a regular draft. So the fact that they're bringing 8 people drafts will be interesting, although admittedly, with the way that Wizards is doing things, they're getting pretty greedy with trying to extract as much as they can from people. So I wouldn't be surprised if somehow they decided to make it even more expensive. Oh, you want to draft with other people? That's going to cost you extra. So they're also adding the option to easily export your decks from limited events if they're either draft or sealed. You'll basically be able to use an add to deck button above your deck box, which takes your deck list specifically from the draft or sealed event you played in and turns it into a regular MTGA Magic Arena deck. So that's a useful, like these little things, they're not huge improvements, but at the same time, they're quality of life improvements that genuinely make a difference. So it's nice to see. We have a situation as well where they're doing something called Be Your Champion, While basically they want you to watch the World Championship coverage, because it's like, while tuning into the World Championship coverage over on Twitch, you can also be your champion in Magic Arena. You don't have to watch Twitch at all for this to be relevant. So during the weekend of the Magic World Championship, Magic Arena will be hosting the World Showcase, which will allow you to play best of one matches using the deck lists submitted by the 16 players competing in this World event. Now, to me, that's actually a really cool concept, where you can actually sit down, play with decks that have been built by people who are generally very skilled at the game. Because depending on how long you've been playing and how much you put into the game, you may not feel like you're that good at Magic the Gathering. The opportunity to play with decks put together by somebody who knows what they're doing and not have to sit there and look up deck lists, put it all together, is actually pretty cool. And what's nice about this event is it's not greedy in any way, in terms of they're not charging you any kind of entry fee, and there are actually rewards as well. You earn experience for your first 2 wins, and you get a special sleeve for your 3rd win. Now, I'll admit, I don't really care about the World Championship sleeve. That's not super exciting to me, but the fact of the matter is you can spend as much time as you want playing in the event. You can try out all these powerhouse decks that exist, and on top of that, you get some free experience for your Mastery Pass. Doesn't cost you a thing to enter. So this is definitely in the good category for me. Now, in the more questionable, probably going to be in the bad category overall, is what they're doing with the Nyx basic lands. These Nyx basic lands are really beautiful to look at. You've already seen them already. They just have the mana symbol of whatever land it is floating up there in the starry sky, looking all majestic and beautiful. So they're including these into the program, and if you buy the Planeswalker decks, you get access to these particular lands. But now they're selling them as styles, and you have to buy these individual lands for 3,000 gold a piece. So they're basic lands. They're literally charging you for basic lands. And it's not that they're charging you for like special basic lands that they created in addition. These, as far as I'm concerned, are the regular basic lands. If you crack one out of every booster pack, that's the basic land for the set. And I don't like the precedent that it sets where they're selling these to us for 3,000 gold a piece. They should be striving to make things that are beautiful intentionally when they're creating cards anyways. It shouldn't be a scenario where, wow, we made a land that's more beautiful and people like more, so instead of just including it like we do with basic lands normally, we're going to make you pay like more than half a draft's worth of gold for this. I really think they're trying to hammer down on the draft scenario. We will get to that though when we get to the draft portion of the video. There's a lot going on, admittedly, in this particular update with all the stuff they're doing in Arena. The next thing we're going to talk about is Festival of the Gods. Now, these are the events that I don't really care for that much. What they're doing is the showcase styles for the gods. To get those, they're going to have the Festival of the Gods. They are centered around monocolored gods from Theros. So you'll have one for Purphoros, you'll have one for each of the 5 different gods. And Purphoros is the first one they're doing. How it works is it is either 2,500 gold or 500 gems to enter. It has modified rules where you're not allowed to play with cards like Persistent Petitioners, Cauldron Familiar, Cascade of Calamity, and Gates Ablaze. Those are currently the cards that are on the banned list for it. So basically you're playing Standard Artisan when you play the Purphoros event. Nylia's event is with a giant monster emblem. Heliod's event is going to use an Immortal Sun emblem. Erebos' event is going to be a Historic Brawl. And Thassa's event is going to be a 150 card pre-constructed singleton. That one actually sounds like a lot of fun. Playing in a 150 card pre-constructed singleton's cool. So what's cool about this event is that it has these events is that it has a variety of different options for you to try out. The rewards are only styles, and so essentially they're just selling you the styles but making you play to win them if you don't care about the format. If you enjoy the format, there's added value. So these are going to be hit or miss events for people, but I liked it before when they did like the staycation event where each week it was a different event, but they were free to enter and we got these styles because Wizards overvalues the styles. In my opinion, the styles are not really like a very good product overall. They're very underwhelming. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is a pretty cool new concept, and that is introducing workshop series. So it says we're also looking to expand the type of events we offer that don't require entry fees. I mean, you told they didn't need the previous. Let's be clear, the events we just talked about didn't need an entry fee. That is a new sort of thing they're slapping on there. Anyhow, let's just stick, I guess, to the subject at hand where we're dealing with something that is better. So it says bonus points if we can find some fun specialty modes that don't require deck building either. Hence, workshops. These limited time events are intended to give players a small taste of a variety of formats, and the only thing you have to do is show up and play. In addition to no entry fees or deck building required, workshop events will also reward you for your first win in each event. These rewards will vary from workshop to workshop. Some will reward gold, others XP, and some individual cards. For the February game update, here's a breakdown of the workshops we're going to see. There's Power and Glory, which is Brawl. If you're new to the format, we're providing a couple decks for you to try out before Wednesday rolls around, or if you head over to the Guild Hall. If you don't understand what they're talking about there, Wizards is doing what, in my opinion, is very scummy. They've introduced Brawl to Arena, but you can only play Brawl on Wednesdays unless you're willing to pay Wizards of the Coast 10,000 gold or 2,000 gems a month just for access to one of their formats. So I really don't like the way they're handling Brawl, but if they're going to do an event where you can play some Brawl for free and they'll give you a free reward, that's okay in my books. Heroes of Theros is another event. Play with limited decks drafted by other players who managed to earn a 7x record in their event. Have you ever asked yourself what a good draft deck looks like? If so, this workshop is for you. See, this one actually seems like a pretty solid idea. They take copies of decks that have won the entirety of a draft, because to win a full draft, you need to win 7 games, right? So you're going to actually take these decks that have won 7 games, enough to clean sweep an entire draft, and everybody's going to play with those decks against each other. So you're going to get a better idea, at least, of what goes into powerful draft decks for particular formats, because each format has different strengths and weaknesses and different decks that are dominant. But I know there are a bunch of people who get worried and they're like, I'm not good at drafting, and this will be a good confidence builder, allowing you to play for free and providing you rewards. So the reward for this one is you get 500 gold. So you get to play with these decks and you get 500 gold tossed towards you as well. That's not too shabby, in all honesty. And then another event is Uncharted Paths. Play with standard constructed decks purposefully designed to be a little off meta. Sure, they'll never top 8 a Mythic Championship, but we love them anyways. That's fun, playing with some random different decks. Now we come to one that falls into the bad category, and this is a big one for me. This is talking about the changes to ranked drafts, and I mentioned this in the title of the video, how full-time Theros Drafts were being taken away. So it says, starting with core set 2020, we made sure ranked drafts of the most current set were always available, alongside a second draft that would rotate every 2 weeks. The data we've seen since then has been counterintuitive. We started to see less overall draft play when there are more events available. Variety is the spice of life, it seems. So from February 14th to 27th, Theros Beyond Death ranked draft will take a 2-week break before returning on February 28th. It'll be available for another 2 weeks and then rotate again. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And it says, don't panic, we're not trying to secretly take away the Theros Beyond Death ranked draft. We may, operative word, revisit having multiple ranked draft events available once 8-person draft is available, but for now, we're going to see how play looks with one ranked draft queue so we can compare notes from before. So for me, this is a scenario where they are taking this away, and I think that this is really unfair to us as players. Having the drafts available for the entire time a new set is out is really good for free-to-play players who are trying to build up their collection. If you're a free-to-play player, having the ranked drafts available is an exceptionally useful way to gather more cards. It is actually part of my recommended strategy for building your collection on free-to-play. And there's a part of me that doesn't wonder if they actually, instead of seeing the data, said, you know what, there are fewer people drafting, if maybe what they actually saw was, this makes it too easy for people to complete sets, or at least play sets of the rare. Because if you use drafting, and I did this in Core 2020, and I did this with Throne of Eldraine, You can collect a full set of 4 of every rare from the set without spending any wild cards, without spending any real world money. You can just do it by playing the game and going through ranked drafts. You can literally build out the entire set. So for me, I mean, not with the mythics, I just mean a playset of the regular rares. Mythics does require a step above and beyond, but either way, being able to acquire 4 of every rare without spending any money is pretty significant. And I do have a video on my channel explaining the method to do that if you are interested. Now, is it still going to be viable with the changes they've made to the draft? Yes, but it is going to require that you adjust how you do things. And instead of being able to draft at your leisure throughout the entire season, you're going to have to work on this 2-week on, 2-week off sort of scenario. We can see with Arena that over time, Wizards keeps dialing things back to make things less generous and more greedy so that they get more. We saw it with the Brawl. We've seen it with the Mastery Pass, where they reduced the amount of rewards that we get and also moved a bunch of the gem rewards to the end. It used to be every 10 levels you would get a gem reward, and now you've got a scenario where the gem rewards don't actually occur, mostly don't occur until way later in the Mastery Pass. So we can see they keep taking these steps that are actually making things worse for us as people who aren't directly sinking a bunch of money into the game, and I am against that. So I don't really believe that they're doing this in our best interest. I think they are doing this in their best interests, and they're honestly, for me, I feel like they're doing too much lately that's good for them. The brawl stuff, even though I don't play Brawl, it just sticks in my craw because I see that as something that they could keep doing, where it's like, okay, how do we charge players for this format? How do we charge players for this format? They're getting really greedy, and you can see it across Arena and Paper Magic at the same time with the Collector's Edition and what's going on with Theros. Theros is a time of some serious upheaval, although if what they're saying is true, then we're really being punished for what happened in the Throne of Eldraine season, where it's like, you aren't drafting enough, not enough gold is getting spent, not enough this is getting spent, all this sort of thing. So that could be why they're actually working on giving us 8-man people drafts too, because they realize, okay, maybe we can actually make more money. So hopefully they won't try and charge us too much for all of that. So the article here finishes off with the event design AMAA. With an assortment of new events, the return of events like the Brawlers Guild Hall, changes to ranked draft availability, and a look at expanding format offerings, we want to keep the conversation going in regards to how we plan events and play queues, including availability, cost of entry, and rewards. They want the cost of entry to be as high as possible and the rewards to be as low as possible. That is how I interpret Wizards' approach to Arena, and that has actually been backed up by people who used to work for them, saying on streams and things like that, that their goal is to, you know what, we'll go as greedy as possible and scale back, because if they accidentally are too generous, it's too hard to retract that, which is what I actually think happened with that traditional draft token. Because in the Mastery Pass, it says ranked draft. On the Wizards website, it says ranked draft. But when you get the token, it's a traditional draft token, and I think they were just like, oh, you know what, we actually gave these people this, and now we can't take it back from the people who got it. Everybody's going to throw a fit. Let's just pretend like all along that's what it's supposed to be, even though every piece of documentation we've given has been saying ranked. I always now lean towards Wizards as being greedy and doing something intentional rather than, oops, they just didn't realize that it would be a bad deal for us. And it's unfortunate, but I believe that's a more realistic attitude to have with the company based on their own actions. So it says Arena's formats, goals, and outlook are clearly changing from standard-only direction we originally built the game on. You've made it clear to us that Arena should provide fun experiences to all types of Magic players, and you're right! Magic is more than any one collectible card game. It's dozens of formats and event types that cater to a diverse player base, from Brawl Brewers to Standard Spikes. We've already ramped up our intention to bring more cards from older sets to Magic Arena, which includes several historic anthologies alongside Amonkhet and other Pioneer-focused remasters. You already have Amonkhet programmed in, don't they? Like, they had those sets. Bringing those in. Wow, you're just gonna flip the switch that lets us get access to the code? Whoop-de-wow! You're so generous! So other Pioneer-focused remaster sets planned for this year alone. We're also going to continue trying out new modes and experiences, even if those experiments include both trials and errors. Yeah, oh, of course. As we move beyond Standard Constructed, we're at times going to have to rethink how we do things in a world where fall rotation doesn't have the same impact for all players. Some of these things have worked great, others not so much, and some end up being a little bit of both, to be perfectly honest. Every time we try something outside of standard, we're going to have to evaluate how it affects all aspects of the game. So to give everyone a chance to ask questions and get answers, Game Director Jay Parker and Executive Producer Chris Cow will be holding an AMAA, Ask Me Almost Anything, on the Magic Arena subreddit. Now, it's funny because when they do these AMAs, they tend to not answer a bunch of questions. Basically, they'll answer fluff questions that feel easy to answer, and then when people have like poignant follows up or ask really direct questions that the people want to know, oh, they just ran out of time for those. So the fact that they're just calling it an AMAA is like, well, we're already giving ourselves the extra A in there as an excuse to not really be transparent with us. I do not believe in Wizards' transparency. I believe they will continue to try and grind what they're giving us down and down and down until the point where they actually screw it up and drive away a bunch of free-to-play players, and then they realize the numbers are flagging, because one of the things they have to balance with a game like this is the number of free-to-play players versus the number of whales who are splashing money into the game, right? Because there are people who spend hundreds of dollars when a set comes out, and there's people who don't spend anything. But the people that don't spend anything, they put in time building up their cards, and they provide more bodies in the game to keep wait times down, all these sort of things. They are absolutely necessary for the game. Arena could not survive as a pay-only model, so they do need to find that right balance. So let me know what you guys think overall. What in here is a good deal? What in here is a bad deal? How you feel about all these changes? Like I said, I'm still under the weather, so I'm heading on out. I will talk to you guys soon. Tonight we're doing a live stream, opening up some mail that Letta sent out with some very cool Magic cards in it, so feel free to come by, and I shall see all of you lovely people later.